Hello, welcome, and thank you for coming. My name's Llewd Lloyd, and I'm kind of in a different place right now. So I have left Vegas, and if you haven't noticed, I've been Mia on Twitch. I've been Mia on YouTube for a little bit. I guess my Rogue video is kind of recent, so if you haven't checked out the Rogue video, please check it out. But long story short, why I've been missing in action, why I haven't really been doing a whole lot of content lately, why I haven't been on Ashes lately. It's primarily because I got laid off my job, so I have a severance package, and I decided that I'm going to move across country. So the Mia part was simply not because of burnout or anything, but simply because I had to leave. I had to just get up and go. So I am leaving Vegas. I'm moving to Virginia, and it's kind of a big deal, kind of a big move. But I have my little interim station right now here in Arizona. And I figured I would post the video that I've been trying to post for a little bit. This was the Node Siege discussion that I had on stream. Basically, we did the PTR test on Node Sieges. We had about 200 members. And I wanted to talk about it and give my feedback on the Sieges and how that went down and how far away we are versus what they were talking about. So I hope you enjoy. I will try to update. I might even stream a little bit here in Arizona before I leave again. But yeah, I'm going to be on a long voyage, and I will see you guys in a bit. Anyways, enjoy the video. Because Node Sieges were really freaking cool. I love them. They were definitely not done. There was a lot of work to do. In their current state, if you were to put it into the alpha, it would not be okay. But I think the idea there is good. I think the activity was fun because we had about 200 players. I don't think it was quite 200 players, but it was pretty close. Yeah, we went to the public channels, and it was a lot of fun. So basically what we did, because I can kind of show you, I can't show you that any footage. One, because I didn't take any footage, and two, because it's under visual NDA. So I can show you practically what happened here. So let me get my EpiPen. Epic pen. Hello? Computer? Some doomers. I think it's people. Oh shit. What's happening? People really care about the game, and they've seen a lot of different iterations and stuff. So without saying any names, the siege kind of sucked. Compared to things that we've seen before in the past, like castle sieges. Castle sieges in the past were amazing, especially in Alpha 1. They were really, really cool. So one of the things that I'll just go ahead and explain what was shown. So we had we'll say attackers. Oh god. Attackers are pink and defenders are blue. Okay? And so you would have the attackers were all lined up right around, I think we were all right here. And then you had certain objective points. You had a camp right here. You had a camp back here. You had a respawn up here. And you had another camp up here. And I think that was it. So you had 4 camps that you... Oh, wait. Camp up here. Right? And so what happened was they would have the defenders all defending the essence tree. Oh god. Oh, this is bad. I can't move stuff. Okay, so you had the defenders all kind of around this son of a bitch. Okay, it was like this. Right here-ish. And then they would take up their positions around the wall. let me see. I think it's... This is terrible. I know. Also, why is my thing so small? That's what she said. Here it is. There we go. Go here. So the wall is like this. You have your bridge right here. You have a bridge down here. And then you had basically just a wall kind of all the way around, Miralith. And it kind of looked like that. And so you had 4 gates. So you had gate number 1, which is like here. You had gate number 2, which is here. You had gate number 3 here, and gate number 4, the caravansary. And you would have the attackers kind of go out. They would take these points, and once you take a point, you can respawn back at them. So then they would just like go and attack. They'd go and attack. They'd go and attack. And then they'd cross the river here. And so like you generally had 2 big raids, 2 to 3 big raids. At level, can you get a spell bow? You're a level 7 mage. I think you can get a spell bow at any level, by the way. But you can get one at a vendor for like level 10 stuff. And then you can also get spell bows that drop or other people that craft spell bows. So spell bows are not like really limited, but some of like the Sanctus spell bows are like required level 10. So weapons are not limited by level. Just a weird off thing. But so the attackers just kind of, it was like very bare bones. We just all started here. And so once you capture these spawn points, you could get like this one. I don't know why it went massive all of a sudden. You could get like this one, and then like say the defenders went and attacked and they got this spawn point, and then like this, the attackers came here and got this one. So that was like a possibility that happened. And then the attackers, once they get these spawn points, they would go and attack these gates. Primarily these 3. And so the defenders would have to split up and go and defend the gates. And then the gates were actually destructible. They would actually crash and break down. There was a bug where clerics like could heal the gates like they could heal caravans, which was not intended. So they asked us not to do that. So we didn't do that. So defending, like healing gates and other inanimate objects was obviously off the table. And basically it's not intended for gameplay, so they didn't want us to do that. I think the intended gameplay is when there is siege equipment and when there are actual like siege mechanics, like you should be able to repair a gate, but healers and clerics shouldn't be able to heal it with like the soothing glow and judgment and stuff like that. So that's not intended. So once those were essentially broken down, then we just had these like little choke points to fight over. And sometimes the attackers would, for example, this no longer matters. So like the attackers would force most of their stuff onto certain gates. So you'd have just like a big clump here. And then most of the defenders would be on the other side defending that choke. And then you'd have another attacker group coming and taking this spawn right here. And then that would be taken over. And then they start forming another group right here. And you're just like at a standstill at the gate until somebody forces through and goes inside. And so it just ended up being these like big, massive Zerg piles. We had people using stages. So there wasn't a whole lot of communication. There wasn't like strike teams happening. So it was just really like Zerg versus Zerg, which is not very fun. Everything is just defender favored as well. So like once you have these spawn points, right, there's a defender camp that's right here that you could spawn at as a defender. And then you would primarily just there's like a vendor there that you could repair your gear. So as a defender, you had the advantage of repairing your gear, while as an attacker, you did not. So that, and also having to push through and get to the essence tree and cap that for 5 minutes was very, very stressful for attackers, because it's basically impossible to sit there for 5 minutes and actually cap it when the spawn point is literally right next to the tree. So you die, you come back as a defender, there's no death spawn timer, and you just keep attacking. So there's the inlying issue of what it looked like for primarily most of the siege. And I think Intrepid knew that that's an issue. So the issues that we occurred during all of this is, one, death timers were, non-existent. Like, so that was an issue. The other thing is that you'd fight around these choke points and there's just nothing really being done. There's like, as an attacker, it's really, really hard to make progress. Even if you were winning the fights, the war of attrition was impossible to win because of the spawn points and the locations and how close they were. So the doomers that we're talking at the end, it's like, oh yeah, these are basic siege things. How come they don't have the basic things? Well, they weren't in the voice chat with Brian and how he was saying this is a very early iteration and we know a lot of things are broken and not a lot of things are implemented yet. These will change, and it will change drastically. So bear with us is kind of like their mindset. So like the doomers didn't hear that part, but they did have some good points. Like, one, if you're having a siege, you need to make sure that your that the ability to win as an attacker is possible, because currently it's not possible. Then number two, sitting at a point for 5 minutes waiting to cap it is not interactive gameplay. It's not a lot of fun. My PvP option is asked me, like goes to forums. I mean, kind of, but like at the same time, like they have reasonable demands. Like, when you're a defender, you need to make sure that you like are defending. Like there's a lot of things that are not implemented as well. Like siege weapons not being a thing, siege repair things are not being a thing. Destructible walls are not a thing currently. Like you only have the destructible gates. There's a lot of things that aren't in for node sieges that could make node sieges really, really great. Also, the point may not be to completely destroy the node and like take it over, but maybe the point is to just destroy a single building. Like maybe I want to go into Miralith and destroy like their factory, because having two factories is stupid as shit, right? So maybe I want to go in and actually just destroy that building with this node siege, and that's my entire goal. So even if we lose technically because we don't win, I actually destroy the building that they're working on, because it's not good for the city to build. The issue with that obviously comes with, well, the mayor's just going to build another one. But like, then you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to do another siege if you build another one, and we're going to destroy it until you make the proper building. There's a lot of issues that can come with the repercussions of node sieging, such as losing journeyman stations that you've been working so hard as a server to get, and then all of a sudden some jackass does a node siege for content, and now your entire realm is without a journeyman hunting station. And you're like, okay, now I have to do all of that over again. And like, that's part of the gameplay loop, but it can be really frustrating, obviously. Especially when we're in Alpha 2, where this stuff is already frustrating enough as it is. But I want to run to Miralith here so that I can kind of show in person the kind of issues that we were having during the node siege. So, let's see. One thing that I really like about like Delta Force Siege gameplay, by the way, and things that I hope that Intrepid does in the future when it comes to node sieges, is that it's not just on this node. Like if I'm doing a node siege, I want to attack this zone of influence, right? So you have your node wars, which are going to attack certain points of interest, like Highwayman Hills was one of the ones that they had done previously. So you'd fight over Highwayman Hills for a territory war and stuff like that. That's really cool in itself. I think when you get to a node siege, you're going to want to attack what's left of the like node zone of influence. And like, for example, you have an objective in Oakenbane. Okay. So maybe it starts in like the top of Oakenbane and you want to fight into this gate, and then you win the gate, or you capture a point over here, which weakens this. So then you can get like a supply chain here. And then you have two objectives where there's like a farmstead outside of the node. And then there's like another thing over here and another thing over here and another thing over here. And if you capture two of those points, two of those 4 points, then you might be able to go to the next stage, which is breaking open the gates. And then once you break open the gates and you have different buildings that you can destroy, you have to destroy like one building, and then you have to capture the essence tree. And like, I think that would be cool, is like you create like multiple objectives and like stages of the node war, so that you are sieging something that feels like you're sieging the zone of influence. You're not sieging the node itself, because this size ended up being problematic for us because it was just Zerg versus Zerg the entire time, which created a lot of issues. For example, you would fight at like these little choke points, and you just would not be able to move. There would just be absolutely zero chance of you progressing without just like full on baiting out some vines from the enemy team, making sure that like the tank grapple and stuff doesn't work. So you like can fight through here, but almost nobody fought through this because this gate was too defendable. You could just have rangers and bards sit up here and you could just like shoot down on people the entire time while they're trying to attack the gate. So it just wasn't really possible. However, you had people up here shooting, and then you just had this bridge that you were fighting over. You can see how this is problematic because it is very hard to get into the city with multiple, like tons of members by forcing through this choke point. There was a camp right here that you could fight over and capture, and this would take you to a spawn point. So this would become a spawn point. We didn't want to fight over spawns because spawn camping is cringe. So that was kind of like decided that, hey, if they're spawning in the camp, don't kill them. But if they are leaving the camp, you could like sit out here, for example. And if they leave the camp this way, you could attack them. But you weren't like sitting in the camp attacking people. Next thing, the other one was this spot over here was crazy. So you were just constantly... This was one of the most fun parts, but it was also impossible for the attackers to get through. Once again, because chokehold, and you just have vines, which look at how far I can cast vines. Like that's insane amount. Like that's a crazy distance. So like oftentimes I'd be out here, I would just cast vines as they're like pushing this gate. I would just cast vines here. And then they would just all get trapped. And then I'd have my whole Zerg come here and just push. And then they would go to a spawn camp that's over there in that direction. So that was another, you know, thing that would happen. And then imagine you do break the gate. You do get in here. And guess what? You're met with another choke point. and now you're fighting in this area, and you're fighting up on these cliffs, and you're fighting up over here. And so we're like constantly fighting in these areas and these zones. And so you're trying to push in, and guess what's right here? Oh, right here is the defender spawn point. So you spawn right here. There's a vendor here that you could repair your gear, and then you just join the fight and you fight here. And oh, guess what? They broke through one of the other gates on the other side. Okay, I just run through this little middle part, and now I'm fighting over the essence tree, which is, oh wait, where is it? Where's the essence tree? It's like right here, isn't it? Is the essence tree not here in the winter? Eh? Am I trolling? I might be trolling. Okay, this was the defender spot, I think. Yeah, so this was the defender spawn. I had it flipped. So you spawn here, and then you'd come out, and then this is the essence tree that you're fighting over. So like somebody had to sit here and cap this for 5 minutes, which is unfun, uninteractive gameplay. And then also when the defenders are spawning right there, it is very hard to cap this for 5 minutes. So, I mean, obviously that's an issue. No death timers. Nobody able to, like, you can't just hold people off here while this one person is dying. You could have like a bunch of clerics on this one person, but generally you wouldn't be able to stop it or to not stop it unless you just like completely let them take it. You also had this gate, which wasn't really reached too often. I think this was pretty low. Like you could have people come through here, but it wasn't very well fought over. Another really big fight spot that we fought was this one. This one was pretty fun to fight because one, it's a long chokehold and there are ways to climb up onto the side and get in, but also like you could use like the environment to your advantage, hop over the walls and stuff like that. So there was like people fighting from this side, and like I as a ranger would cast vines on the other side of the wall from here. So this was like another way for like attackers to just rush up and like clear through the Zerg. Brian was mentioning that the walls are obviously low. It was not intended for the walls to be like this for node sieges. So like jumping over the walls and stuff like that. Although it created like a fun dynamic, it was also not, it's not really intended for you to be jumping in and out and over the walls and stuff like that constantly. So you're fighting over these like really small chokeholds. You're not really fighting in the inside of the city. There's no real reason to fight inside of the city because there's no objective in here. So you don't have like these random skirmishes in between these buildings. These like this whole area is just empty. You just have like 40 people running up the side. The only time that you're skirmishing in here is if you're like trying to get some weird advantage up here on the side of the rocks so that you can get back here and like do like a weird flank. So like we had gone over in this area for a little bit, and like we had like had some pretty intense fights fighting this way, getting flanked on this side, and we had like a nice little, like as attackers we were winning like a lot of these fights where we're just fighting in this like little area, but because the defenders spawn right there, like we weren't gaining ground. Like we would push in one way, get flanked, push in this way, and then like that's all we could do. And then eventually we ran out of mana and we had to retreat. It wasn't like we just lost the war of attrition because people kept on spawning right here and there was nothing we could do about it. So even if the defenders had even wanted to like push these points, there's no reason to, outside of like just making sure that you're denying the attackers from spawning in a spot, and you want the attackers to spawn in a specific place so that you could keep the advantage of just making sure that they're only trying to go through like one way or another, rather than, or they'd have to like regroup and move into another zone in order to attack another place, which you had people scouting and you could communicate like, oh, they're going to the northeast gate, they're going to the north gate, they're going to the west gate, they're going to the southeast gate. So it was pretty, with only 4 entrances into the building, and like you have eyes pretty much everywhere and very easy to defend. It's very, very hard for the defenders to lose. Actually impossible. So yeah, if you were on the attacking side, it sucked. So I think some of the things that were being discussed were, I think node plug being changed for node sieges was something that was talked about. Like, I don't know if this is something that they actually are doing, but they were talking about like how restructuring the node plug itself so that node sieges don't become choke point battles. You have like more objectives to fight over. Stuff like these were like talked about by the devs. So the fact that they're like, hey, we have the Mirrorlith and the Winstead node plugs, and you know what? Yeah, it's problematic for node sieges, so we're just gonna fucking change them. Like, that's crazy. Like, the amount of work and effort that they've put into these node plugs and are already thinking about just restructuring the whole thing so that their system can actually work is pretty insane to me. I think that's huge W from Intrepid. Obviously, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take more development time. You know, if you mess up a node plug once, like, how many node plugs do you need to make sure that node sieges are like balanced and good feeling? Obviously, node sieges are meant to be defended. They should be more easily defended. If you are on equal terms, it should be near impossible for the attackers to win. However, node sieges are balanced around 100 versus 100 at the moment. Could be 500 versus 500 in the future, but right now it's 100 versus 100. And if you are taking that approach, then instead of it being like nay impossible, it should be like 80% defender favored and like 20% attacker favored. And instead of it being like 95 to 5% on an equal balance stage, because yeah, you're going to need that little bit of wiggle room, especially when it comes to endgame when everybody's level 50. And that balancing becomes different at like level 50 fights than currently right now when we're at village stage. So there's a lot of things to consider when it comes into node sieges, and it's a really, really big system. That's why I like the idea of like having multiple objectives, having different entry points, and you make it kind of static to the zone. Obviously, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of things for Intrepid to do and think about and change and do all that stuff. So I think node sieges are going to be really fun. I think they're going to be really frustrating. I think they are going to be incredibly difficult to design and fix and maintain. I think this is going to be years of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And I think our feedback is pretty detrimental. But I guess the big points that I want to make here is I want Intrepid to do node sieges, death timers, based off control points like Alpha 1, Castle Siege. So if you had more control points, you could, 1, get closer to objective, 2, death timers are faster with more control points acquired. Or you could do something like multiple objectives, like progressive objectives, which is like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Like stage 1 would be Oakenbane. Stage 2 would be breaking gates. Stage 3 would be destroying buildings, node buildings. And then stage 4 would be like capturing or killing capturing essence tree, and then not only capturing essence tree, but not be a 5-minute timer where someone is doing nothing for uninteractive gameplay. I apparently spelled that wrong. No, I didn't. I want it to be push and pull for defender / attacker. You could also add in obstacles for attackers, being like having a limited number of lives shared amongst the 100 players. For example, Delta Force Warfare, where like each objective that you progressively take, you gain more lives. So say you, for example, take Oakenbane and then you move into the city or into the fields. Okay, you had 100 or you had 300 lives total, and you lose like 60 taking over Oakenbane. Now you have 240 lives, but you've taken Oakenbane. Now you get a plus 100. So now you have 340 lives to take the next objective. And then you lose 100. And so you're at 260 lives, but then you go to the next objective and now you have another 100 lives. And so you're back to 360. And so like, you're just like constantly gaining lives, losing lives, trying to throw yourself at these objectives to take the city. And like, if the defenders defend well and they keep defending at these points, then the war of attrition can still be won that way. I think that could be an interesting way to do it. And then I guess it should still be defender favored. Still defender favored in equal terms. But since numbers will be technically equal for node sieges, you'll want, and max level cap is a thing, have it be 80-20 instead of 95-5 chance of defending. So like I would aim for 80% of nodes being defended, 20% being killed. You could obviously adjust this based on these types of things. So death timers, spawn locations, obviously. I think that should be number one. Spawn locations, make sure spawners are not on major defensive control points. You could also give control points buffs / debuffs for each one owned, like Alpha 1 Castle Siege. But there's so much things that they can do with this system that I feel like if they just implemented some of these and made sure that these work. Obviously we talked about like node like choke points. Like choke points are obviously massive, but there should be rooms for like places that are not chokes that you can enter to gain like a strategic advantage. Obviously that's going to change how node plugs look like, and that's going to be a lot of work and effort for the environment team in itself. So don't kill yourselves, but these are things that could change, like environment could change the battle entirely. So it doesn't matter if like you're attacking Winstead. Like that's why I like these points of interest, because these points of interest are actually interesting battlefields. And I like fighting over these different objectives because they're all different. Like Runes of Cephalion has some really, really cool passageways and stuff that you could fight over if you wanted to take New Ayla, for example. Like I think this should be like part of the battlefield, and then you kind of like move in. Obviously, you have to think about time frame and how long these things last and all that stuff too. So that could be a, maybe this is part of a node war and not part of the node siege. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how you do it, but I think if you utilize your environment that you've built and spent a lot of time on for these types of objectives and things, I think people are going to have a lot of fun. I think the world would be massively changing dynamic, and knowledge actually plays a huge part when it comes to terrain and like home field advantage for defenders in itself. So yeah, I think there's tons of things that you can do. There's a lot of ways to go right. There's a lot of ways to go wrong. And I think it'll be fun testing regardless. So node sieges look really cool. A lot to work on. Lots of stuff that I want to see in the future. But yeah, again, I think that's a video in itself. Just cut that. Plus other node sizes for two for like level 4 to 6. Yeah. So siege weapons and all that stuff of the fucking walls and stuff. That could be amazing. Like all these different fights could be super cool. Like fighting over Colossal Crater. Like the other thing I want to think about is like instance versus non-instance for node sieges. I almost think node sieges have to be instanced. It'd be weird to see them not. I think node wars being public is fine, but node sieges probably need to be instanced. Just because you want to have it like the fair battlegrounds. You also probably want to have no mobs in the world. You also want to have better stability for like player stability, like performance networking, especially over something that's like that big. I think it should be spectatable. There's a lot of things that you want to do so that it can become a spectacle in itself and also like really fun and kind of create like this big team battle type of thing. I don't know. I love it. I love the idea of it. In practice, how realistic is all this? Who knows? The idea of it is amazing though. I would like to spectate. I mean, like, yeah, if it's only 200 players, like it would be cool to have a spectating system where you have like like you could fly around and look at these things. I think it would be really fun casting these types of things, especially at like open in the open world and stuff like that. Oh my God, it'd be so much fun. Getting rid of the mobs and stuff just so that you can have like these instance events that last like an hour to 2 hours during prime time. Like hell, make it 4 hours if you wish, and like have substitutes and have people on standby lists and stuff like that. So if like someone were to disconnect or whatever, you'd be able to get in. Some issues that come with that are like griefers, people that will just buy another account and hold these spots up and also just kind of AFK. There should be like a report rule or something like that. Like I don't know. It could be interesting. You would have to have like an in-game GM monitoring, making sure that nobody's griefing like these major events. And in-game GMs are something that Intrepid has talked about doing, and also could be a potential thing that, they look into as like part of their job description is like overseer node sieges as part of their job description. So I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff that you could do if you really want to make this game the way that you want to make it. I think that would be super awesome. And betting could be interesting, especially if it's like a economic node. Oh man, speculating the things that you could do with a game is so cool. But I know with each thing that I offer, it's a tremendous amount of development time. And honestly, as long as the game is good and the game is fun, it's all I really care about at the end of the day. It doesn't have to have all these crazy things. But I'm thinking like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, even after launch, all this stuff being implemented in the game into the future could make Ashes of Creation like something crazy. Like, the only thing it needs is a player base and player retention. And player base and player retention is very, very hard to do in this day and age. I don't know. I think the PvP is worth it. Other things that you have to consider when you're limiting it to like 100 to 200 people is there's guilds that size. What if one guild just decides to do the node siege? You know, like you lock out all the other guilds and other players that want to participate. So that's another issue that they have to cross, another obstacle that they have to cross. A lot of it is because it is in itself a big system. And like, how many people do they expect to be in a node? It's probably more than 100 to 200 people, right? So, and like, what are the networking capabilities of that? And does instancing help that? Does it, like, I'm sure it does, but like, how much does it help? What kind of things does spectating cost resource wise when it comes to like CPU and RAM and all that stuff, and you have other players connecting, watching the match, or I say match, but I mean the node siege. I don't know how all that works, and I'm sure that in itself for just building that system is pretty intensive in itself. So, but yeah, if like 5 years after launch they implement the like spectating system, that'd be cool. I'm not expecting all this to be done today or tomorrow or like prior to launch even. But like, these are things that I'm thinking about like for long-term future as well. And you could have like 8 basic node types at the beginning of launch. And then 2 years in, you have every single node is its own plug that the environment team has developed. That's another thing where it's like, even at launch, it doesn't need to have everything be different, but like enough variability between different biomes and stuff. And then eventually you can keep on expanding and working on getting to the end goal, which is this world is completely different no matter which node you are in, as long as the longevity of the game persists. Level 22, shame? No, not really. I haven't really tried to level too much. I've been chilling. Phase 2. I'm waiting on the rogue. Anyways, that's pretty much everything for the node siege on the PTR. So, I had a lot of fun. Can't wait to keep testing it. Can't wait to test it with rogue soon. Man, my voice is dying now. It's crazy. You guys just watching me talk for hours on end. Thank you for being here, by the way. I appreciate you guys.